Imagine walking into a restaurant with 400 hungry people, but the kitchen only has 100 pizzas. That is the exact mathematical reality facing the world's largest silver exchange, the COMEX, right now. As of today, they have 103 million ounces of silver available for delivery. That sounds like a lot until you realize that in less than 30 days, they are facing over 400 million ounces of open contracts. It is a game of musical chairs where the music is about to cut out, and 3 out of every 4 players are about to realize there is no seat waiting for them. We are rapidly approaching February 27th, a date you must mark in your calendar with a red pen. This is the first notice day for March delivery. Right now, physical silver is draining out of COMEX vaults at a staggering rate of 785,000 ounces every single day. This isn't a slow leak, it is a structural hemorrhage. While the mainstream media is distracted by the latest political theater, the very foundation of the precious metals market is being hollowed out from the inside. But here's the open loop that should keep you awake at night. The COMEX reports 2 very different types of silver, not registered, and eligible. Registered is the stuff they actually own and are legally obligated to deliver. Eligible is simply silver owned by private parties that happens to be parked in their garage. The exchange loves to combine these numbers to make the vault look full, but the registered inventory, the only number that actually matters for a delivery, is down 70% since 2020. If the real inventory is disappearing 7 times faster than it was just 2 years ago, what happens when that first wave of traders shows up on February 27th and asks for their bars? We are looking at a potential bank run on physical metal. But there is a hidden alarm bell that is already screaming, an indicator that is currently 25 times higher than its historical average. Most investors have never even heard of it, but it is the one thing that proves the vault might already be empty. What is this invisible rate? And why is it currently signaling a total market collapse before the first bar is even delivered? To find the answer, we have to look at the 8% alarm and the secret squeeze happening behind closed doors. In the last section, we identified the massive gap between paper promises and physical reality. But how do we know the market is actually panicking behind closed doors? We look at the silver lease rate. Think of this as the interest rate for physical metal. In a normal, healthy market, this rate sits at about 0.3 to 0.5%. It is cheap to borrow silver because silver is everywhere. But as of February 2026, that rate has exploded to 8%. That is 25 times higher than the historical norm. When lease rates spike like this, it is the market's way of screaming that there is no physical metal available for loan. Traders are so desperate to get their hands on a physical bar that they are willing to pay predatory interest rates just to hold it for a month. This isn't just an American problem, this is a global musical chairs event. In Shanghai, silver inventories have slumped by nearly 90% in just a few weeks. The London Metal Exchange, which is the heart of global pricing, is reporting its lowest stock levels in over a decade. In fact, China has officially reclassified silver as a strategic material, putting strict export controls on the metal. They aren't just selling it anymore, they are hoarding it for their own new energy and AI dominance. But here's the open loop that most retail investors are missing. If there is a global shortage and lease rates are at 8%, why hasn't the price already doubled to $200? There's a paper wall being built by the big banks to keep the spot price suppressed, but that wall is starting to crack. In February, the delivery rate on the COMEX hit an unbelievable 98%. Almost everyone holding a contract is refusing the cash and demanding the metal. If the banks are artificially holding the price down while the physical metal is being vacuumed out of the vaults, what happens when the very last bar is gone? There is a specific nuclear option hidden in the exchange rulebook that could legally allow the COMEX to settle your silver contract in worthless paper dollars instead of the metal you paid for. How can they legally take your silver away? And what is the margin massacre strategy they buy that have used twice before to wipe out investors just like you? We'll reveal the House Always Wins playbook in the next part. To navigate this minefield, you need a professional grade strategy. I call it the VPP framework: vault, pressure, and position. We've already verified that the vault is leaking. Now let's look at the pressure. March is a major delivery month on the COMEX. This is when the paper promises must be converted into physical bars. As of mid-February 2026, there are over 400 million ounces tied to March contracts, while the registered inventory just dipped below the psychological 100 million ounce floor for the first time in modern history. If even 25% of these contract holders stand their ground and say, "Keep your dollars, I want my metal," the COMEX officially hits 0. This isn't just a theory. In February, the delivery rate hit a staggering 98%. This means smart money Hedge funds and industrial giants like Tesla and Samsung are no longer trusting the paper. They are taking every bar they can get their hands on before the gate slams shut. But why is the exchange letting the vault drain to nothing? Because they have a nuclear option hidden in the rulebook. Under force majeure or emergency rules, the COMEX can legally suspend physical delivery and force a cash settlement. This means if you spent years waiting for silver to hit $100, they could freeze the price at 80, hand you 80 paper dollars and say goodbye. You get the cash, but you lose the asset right before it goes vertical. But here is the newest open loop that should make your blood run cold. Even if the COMEX forces a cash settlement, they cannot stop the industrial panic. A solar panel company cannot build a product with a cash settlement. They need the physical atoms. If the COMEX stops delivering, these companies will bypass the exchange and go straight to the miners, creating a shadow market, and where the price isn't $80, it's $300. How do the exchanges plan to reset the game to prevent this shadow market from destroying them? There's a specific trick they will have used in 1980 and 2011 called the post the margin massacre. It takes a way to legally bankrupt the longs without ever needing a single ounce of silver. We'd all reveal how they plan to pull the rug out from under you in the next part. When the exchanges get desperate, they don't look for more silver. They change the laws of physics for the market. To understand the danger we face on February 27th, we have to look at the crime of 1980. The Hunt brothers had cornered the market and silver was screaming toward $50. In response, the exchange didn't find more metal. They invented Silver Rule 7. This rule fundamentally broke the market by decreeing that traders could only sell silver. They were legally barred from buying it. Imagine a house on fire where the fire department locks the doors so no one can bring in water, only let people jump out the windows. The result? Silver plummeted 80% in weeks, dropping from $50 to $10. Fast forward to 2011, and they used a different weapon, the margin massacre. As silver flirted with $50 again, the CME raised margin requirements 5 times in just 9 days. This increased the cost of holding a position by 80%, forcing every leveraged trader to sell immediately to cover their costs. We are seeing the exact same pattern right now. In December 2025, silver hit an all-time high of $83.90. What happened the next day? The CME hiked margins during the thinnest trading period of the year, triggering a 10% flash crash in hours. The exchange only manages risk when the price goes up. You never see them raising margins when silver is crashing. It is a one-way street designed to protect the big shorts. But here is the open loop that makes 2026 different from every other crash in history. In 1980 and 2011, the vaults were physically full. The exchange was fighting a paper war. Today, they're fighting a war of atoms. Even if they raise margins to 100%, they cannot manufacture the silver required for the 1 billion ounce industrial deficit we've built over the last 5 years. If the paper market crashes while the physical supply hits zero, we are heading toward a price decoupling. One price will exist on the digital screen, while a completely different price exists in the real world. But who is the invisible giant currently buying up the world's remaining physical supply? And how is their secret hoard about to trigger a permanent supply squeeze that no margin hike can stop? In the last section, we explored how the margin massacre is used to scare paper traders out of the market. But while the digital screens show red, the physical world is facing a math problem that no rule change can solve. We are currently heading into our 6th consecutive year of a structural silver deficit. Since 2021, the cumulative shortfall has exceeded 800 million ounces. To put that in perspective, that is roughly equivalent to an entire year of global mine production that simply does not exist. This isn't just about jewelry or stacking coins. The world has shifted. Silver is now an essential industrial metal. Every single electric vehicle on the road requires between 5 and 10 times more silver than a traditional internal combustion engine. Our transition to green energy is built on the back of this metal. The solar industry alone is projected to consume nearly half of the annual mine supply in 2026. Even as manufacturers try to thrift or use less silver per panel, global solar capacity is expanding by 15% annually, neutralizing those savings. But here is the open loop that the big banks are terrified you all discover there is an invisible giant currently vacuuming up the world as remaining physical supply. Now, while Western investors are being distracted by paper crashes, JP Morgan has quietly amassed a record-setting physical position of over 750 million ounces. Simultaneously, China has officially moved from being a net exporter to a hoarder, nationalizing its silver supply to fuel its own AI and tech dominance. If the world S most powerful bank and the world S largest manufacturing superpower are fighting over the same dwindling pile of metal, What happens when they stop buying from the open market and start buying out entire mines? The smart money is already moving to the final stage of the squeeze, a phenomenon known as industrial outbidding. In our final part, we reveal how you can track the point of no return and the specific steps you must take to ensure your portfolio is not left holding a worthless digital promise when the physical music finally stops. We have reached the event horizon. As of today, February 22nd, 2026, the silver market has fundamentally split into two realities. On one side, you have the paper price, currently stabilizing near $80 after the chaotic war shock in January. On the other, you have the physical reality, where the COMEX registered inventory has officially crashed through the floor, dropping to just 98 million ounces. This is the first time in modern history we are below the 100 million mark, and it signifies that the exchange's delivery capacity is practically exhausted. But the real point of no return is not to price target, it is a policy shift. On January 1st, China officially implemented silver export controls, requiring licenses that effectively cut off 60 to 70% of the global supply to the West. Silver is no longer just a metal. It is now a strategic material on par with rare earths. This move was the catalyst that sent silver to its all-time high of $121 last month, proving that when the physical supply vanishes, the paper rules don't matter. So, how do you protect yourself before the next margin massacre or cash settlement event? The strategy for 26 is simple: decouple from the system. Professional investors are moving away from paper ETFs like SLV, which saw a $7 billion exodus last month, and are moving into sovereign vaulting. You must ensure that the silver you own is not someone else's liability. If it is in a pool or a digital account that allows for cash settlement, you don't own the metal. You own a promise that will be broken the moment the vault hits zero. The industrial outbidding has already begun. Tech giants are now going directly to miners like First Majestic to secure supply, bypassing the COMEX entirely. This creates a shadow price that the public cannot see. But there is one final indicator you need to watch: a specific divergence. In the Shanghai Gold Exchange premium that has accurately predicted every major silver move for the last 3 years. What is this Eastern signal telling us about the price of silver for the second half of 2026? And why does it suggest that the $80 floor is just the launching pad for the next leg up?